Imagine this. It's summer of 2018. I'm in Mumbai, India. It's 120 degrees outside, and the sweat is dripping down my face. My patient, Meena, and I are stuck in an old little taxi. It's now our second day driving around, and today we've been at it for 45 minutes. If you have never been to Mumbai, that's exactly what it feels like. And Meena was brave enough to be fighting her fear of a small enclosed place by driving around in a cab with me in Mumbai. I look at Meena, who's really gasping for air at this point and dripping in sweat. And I say to her, Meena, I need you to get inside of the trunk of this car. And eventually, you're going to get a trunk of a car. Here we go. And I look at her and I say, I need you to get inside of the trunk of this car. Meena panics. She's looking at me, terrified. Why would I ask Meena something so seemingly outrageous? Because this is one of the most fundamental and effective techniques in exposure therapy. And because Meena has been held hostage by her anxiety for the past 18 years. Every time she'd enter a small enclosed place, her heart would pound. She'd feel dizzy. She felt as the world was closing in. Meena, a very strong, successful businesswoman, could not overcome her fears. She not only feared being in a plane and had to take medication to fly, she also started to avoid small enclosed places, exactly like the taxi we're in, avoided public transportation, and even feared being home alone. Yet at age 65, Meena wanted a different relationship with her anxiety. So here we are, back in the taxi in Mumbai. Meena is still staring at me. I can almost hear her thoughts. Why did I hire a behavioral therapist? Is she losing her mind? I should have taken my anxiety medication this morning. As Meena finds her breath, she says something in Hindi to the taxi driver. And the next thing I know, we're back at my hotel. Luana, get your passport. My passport? Yes. I'd rather fly than to get inside of the trunk of this car. An hour later, we are boarding a flight in Mumbai. Meena is flying for the first time in her life in the past 18 years without an anxiety medication. Meena is not alone in her experience of anxiety. Nearly 275 million people suffer from an anxiety disorder in the world, making it the most prevalent mental health disorder. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, nearly 40 million people in the US suffer from an anxiety disorder, costing the US nearly $42 billion in healthcare costs a year. Yet I'm here today to tell you that you do not have to be paralyzed by your anxiety. I'm here to tell you that you can actually make your anxiety your best friend. So how do we start a new relationship with anxiety? To answer this question, I invite you on a journey to the first moments where I learned the techniques that I now teach patients all over the world, including Meena. My journey begins in Governador Valadares, a small town in the interior of Brazil. I'm now 10 years old, and my father has officially left us. my mother is faced with the reality of having to feed my sister and I. I still remember a day when we had one potato for the three of us. Don't get me wrong, we didn't starve. But my mother, being the survivor that she is, had to find a way to keep reinventing herself. She sold brooms, and when brooms were not selling, she sold hangers. When hangers did not pay the bills, she made clothes, underwear, pajamas, uniforms. Watching my mom thrive despite of all odds is the first time in my life that I understood what it takes to go through your anxiety, to accept its presence, to make your best friend instead of being paralyzed by it. By age 15, I moved to Belo Horizonte, which is the third largest city in Brazil. I'm sent to live with my grandmother to get a better education. Belo Horizonte is super exciting, but also a little scary. I quickly learned that making friends in a large city is not easy. I'm going inward. I'm becoming shy. I didn't catch this, but my grandmother did. On a beautiful Saturday afternoon, my grandmother invites me to go for lunch at a local shopping mall. As we walk towards lunch, my grandmother proceeds to tell me that she's noticed I hadn't made many friends, that I was staying home a lot, and that she was concerned about this. That's what my grandmother called my bubble, my personal space. She believed that at that point in my life, my bubble was so large that I was keeping everybody at bay. And that was the primary reason why I had no friends. To be honest with you, I didn't care much about this idea of a bubble at 15. What I cared about was having Chinese food for the first time in my life. I can still smell the sweet and sour chicken. It was delicious. As we were getting ready to sit with my delicious food, my grandmother looks at me and says, "Let's go sit with that woman. It looks like she does not want any company." What? Right? Is she going crazy? Sitting with a stranger at a shopping mall? Eating with a stranger? I don't even have friends yet. My stomach was hurting. My heart pounded. I want to go home. I'm begging my grandmother, "Let's go home." Yet she pushes through. Next thing I know, we are sitting and eating and talking to a stranger. Let me be honest, my grandmother was talking. I was avoiding the whole thing. I don't remember how many times my grandmother took me to the mall to talk to strangers. But I do remember he repeated again and again. And I do remember that it was very painful. But I also remember that after a while, I enjoyed our lunch dates. And I even enjoyed talking to strangers. By the time I was 18, I moved to Buffalo, New York as an exchange student. Eager, so very eager, to finally have a chance to live my American dream. As the months passed, I met my old fear again. The fear of talking to strangers. What would they think of me? Would they like me, accept me, want me in their circle? This time, it was much more difficult because I barely spoke any English. So what did I do? I did the unthinkable. I joined ski club. That's right. Without ever skiing before. A Brazilian in the slopes. Not a pretty picture. Why did I do it? Well, I had to be stuck. It took an hour every week to and from the ski resort. Being stuck with 40 people in a bus meant I had to find a way to shrink my bubble. I had to find a way to talk to strangers. And by the end of my exchange student year, I had made friends for a lifetime. And, you'd be happy to know, I was skiing, if you can call that skiing. In retrospect, I can see now how this experience shaped my decision to become a behavioral therapist. So to learn more, I started graduate school, pursuing a degree in clinical psychology. That's when I began to understand what my mother and grandmother had been showing me all along. I learned that anxiety is adaptive. Biologically, it's signaling our body something important. It's telling us about danger. If there was a lion right now, right here in front of all of us, our body, our anxiety would protect us by getting us ready to react. How? By turning on our limbic system, the fight or flight center of our brain. Once our limbic system is on, our heart starts to pound, we breathe faster, we sweat, our muscles contract. We are ready to run. There's a significant difference between what I was learning in graduate school, which is anxiety is biologically adaptive, and it's something that kept us alive, and yet what I saw at the clinic, paralyzing my patients. So should I do what most of my patients ask me to do? Take away all of their anxiety? Absolutely not. Taking away our anxiety is like taking away our pain receptors. If we touch a hot stove without any pain receptors, we'll burn. So although pain is unpleasant, it protects us from further injury, just like anxiety, which protects us from danger. So if anxiety is adaptive and necessary, then what is the problem? Avoiding is the problem. Avoiding our anxiety makes all of us feel a little better momentarily. And yet, in the long run, it can be really harmful. Think about it this way. Avoiding our anxiety is like taking a Tylenol for a fever due to a bacterial infection. Although the Tylenol will bring our fever down, it will not fight the infection. To fight the infection, you're going to need something designed to target the bacteria, like an antibiotic. The good news is, when it comes to anxiety, the antibiotic is called exposure therapy. It's skills that all of us can learn to help our limbic system, the fight or flight part of our brain, to differentiate an imaginary lion from a real lion. There is a crucial difference, however, between being exposed to our fears versus approaching our anxiety as a skill. Mina was exposed to flying again and again and again for 18 years and could not get on a plane without taking an anxiety medication. In Belo Horizonte and in Buffalo, I was exposed to strangers all the time, and it did not mean that I wasn't afraid to talk to them. So what is the key? What is the difference? In exposure therapy, the difference is we need to approach our specific fear and do it over and over again in a specific pattern. In exposure therapy, that's called looping. Looping is the idea of facing a particular fear, staying with it long enough for anxiety to come down by at least half, and then repeating it again and again and again. On their first day in Mumbai, Mina and I drove in a hot taxi for hours and hours and hours. Once Mina got on that first flight, we proceeded to take 8 more flights in 5 days. That's right. And then, ultimately, Mina was able to overcome her fear of small enclosed places by getting inside of the trunk of her car. again and again and again. Mina was brave and overcame her claustrophobia at age 65. It was approaching my own fears that got me to pursue a life in this country, to learn English, to pursue my dream of becoming a behavioral therapist, and to soar high enough to get a position at Harvard. My dream for each of you, one of you today, is that you choose to engage with your anxiety at a much earlier age than Mina. My dream for each one of you today is that you learn how to make your anxiety your best friend. Just like that friend that you have, that you love, but keeps nudging you out of your comfort zone. And the magic is, if you learn to make anxiety your best friend before it becomes a paralyzing force in your life, you won't need a PhD to overcome it. Both my mother and grandmother, without a college degree, taught me the skills that later I learned to be scientifically sound based in biology, and that I now teach patients, including Mina. So come dream with me. Today, teach somebody how to overcome their fears, one step at a time. I promise you, you change their lives and yours forever. Thank you.